Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start off with all the stuff that we have covered in quadratics. We're just going to first look at the coefficients and how they affect the parabola of the quadratic here. Ax squared plus bx plus c. That's the standard form of a quadratic. That's all we've worked with so far. How do you tell if a parabola opens up or down? That's this guy right here, the a value. If a is positive, it's going to open up. If a is negative, it opens down. So a mathematical way of saying that, if a is greater than 0, that means it's positive, we'll open up. Okay, when I say open up, I mean it looks like this. Or if a is less than 0, then it opens down. So opening down means the parabola will be upside down like that. It opens up if it's positive, it opens down if it's negative. How do you tell the width? So you ignore the negatives, okay? The width does not matter as far as if it opens up or down. What we're really talking about is the absolute value. So I'm going to say the absolute value of A. If it's positive 5 or negative 5, those have the same width, and they would both be very narrow. If it's greater than 1, then it's going to be more narrow than if it's x equals 1. When we talk about the width, we're usually comparing it to 1x squared. So if you pick a number that's bigger than 1, it's going to be more narrow. Again, if it was negative 2, it's the absolute value, so 2 is bigger than 1, it is still more narrow, it's just upside down. So if it's bigger than 1, then it's going to be narrower or more narrow, and then if it's anything between negative 1 and 1, then it would be wider. Okay, the way we can say that with an inequality is it's got to be greater than negative 1, and it's got to be less than 1. So think fractions that are less than 1, and it doesn't matter again if they're positive or negative, you're just looking at the width, which is if it's less than 1. Y-intercept is always your c value. The x-coordinate of the y-intercept is always 0 because it's on the y-axis, and it's always the c value, so 0, c. And then the axis of symmetry is, what we're talking about here is if I have a parabola, let me draw, there's a parabola sketch, and now I've got an axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry is that line that goes right down the middle, okay? So if I say the axis of symmetry is positive, that means the parabola has moved to the right. It can be anywhere over here, okay? If the axis of symmetry is positive, the parabola goes to the right. If the axis of symmetry is negative, the parabola goes to the left, okay? So the way you figure that out is you can't just look at A and you can't just look at B. The trick is if A and B are the same, if A and B are the same, then the axis of symmetry is negative. Okay, that's how you want to remember this, or that it goes to the left. So for all of these, since A is positive, B would also be positive because it went to the left. So all these things that I'm kind of moving around here, A is positive because it opens up, and B would have to be positive as well because it's moving to the left. But if I flip it over, now A is negative, which means B has to be negative. So here A and B are both negative, or A and B are both positive. That's to the left. If you come over to this side, now A is positive, but they're not the same, so B would be negative. Or if A is negative, then B would have to be positive because they're opposites if it's on the right. So that's your A, B, and C values, and that's how they affect the graph. Now let's actually see if we can analyze some. First thing, if it opens up, A is positive. So let's do all those. It opens up, A is positive. Opens down, A is negative. Opens down, A is negative. Cool. Y-intercept is easy. So this is above the x-axis. That looks like it's positive. I think maybe positive 3. Positive 3 is a positive number. Here the y-intercept looks like it's negative 4, so it's negative. Here the y-intercept, I can't see, maybe like negative 7, also negative. And down here, C is also negative. So those you can do without knowing too much. You just kind of say, oh, it opens up, y-intercept, fine. Again, if A and B are negative, it goes to the left. Or I'm sorry, if A and B are the same, it goes to the left. If A and B are the same, it goes left. So since this parabola went to the left, A and B have to be the same. A is positive, B is positive. Since this parabola's axis of symmetry is on the right, it is positive, A and B have to be different. So since A is negative, B is positive. This one's also on the right, so A and B have to be different. Positive, negative. And the last one again, also on the right. Since it's on the right, A and B are opposites. A is negative, B is positive. So these are very similar, okay? That's just doing the coefficients. Now let's look at maybe, we got the width too, okay? So again, you're comparing to 1x squared. You can ignore the negatives. They don't affect the width. You're just putting them in order from big to small. The narrowest is going to have the biggest coefficients. So Your options are 2/3, 3, and 5/3. So the biggest number here is 1. The first one rather is 3. That's your biggest. Then 5/3 is 1.6 repeating. That's bigger than 1. So that's your second one. And 2/3 is the smallest number here. So it would be the widest. Again, it doesn't matter that it's negative. You're just looking at the absolute value. So the bigger number is the narrowest, and the smaller number is going to be the widest. Now let's see if we can put it all together and actually graph a couple of these. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the axis of symmetry. The equation for the axis of symmetry is the opposite of b over 2a. Here, b is 4, so the opposite of 4 would be -4. Over 2a, 2a is 1/2. You do need to be careful when you type this in your calculator. You always want to simplify that first. 2 times 1/2 is 1. -4 divided by 1 is -4. So the axis of symmetry is -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We know the middle. Okay? Which is the x-coordinate of the vertex. But what we don't know is the y-coordinate of the vertex. So the way you figure that out is you need to type it in your calculator. You need to plug it into the function. Now this can be tricky. Just using your calculator can be an issue for people. So I'm going to say 1/2, and I'm just going to use parentheses everywhere I see an x. Instead of x, I'm going to put -4 in parentheses. So -4 squared plus 4 times -4 minus 3. Oops, didn't work. Go back up there. Minus 3. And I got -11. So the y-coordinate of the vertex is -11. That's a little bit off the page. We'll just say it's right about there. Last thing is the y-intercept. That's easy. It's always 0, something. Something is your c value. So since c is -3, it's going to be at 0, -3. 1, 2, 3. And then since we know where the axis of symmetry is, we can reflect that over here. So if you're 4 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to go 4 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is all the points we need for now to sketch our parabola. Okay, we'll talk about getting a 4th and 5th point later, but for now, that's it. Let's do one more. So we'll go through this a little quicker. We're going to first do the opposite of b over 2a again for the axis of symmetry. The opposite of 8 is -8, and a is -2. So -8 divided by, simplify that first, -4 is 2. X equals 2 is the axis of symmetry. That's right here. Oops. Be smaller. There we go. Okay. That's the x-coordinate of the vertex. Now we're going to plug that in. So I'll use my calculator again. I'll try there's another way you can do this. There's a little trick. If you know that x is 2, you can say 2, and then you can hit this store button and store it as x. If you have a fancy calculator, this is a helpful thing. 2, store as x. Now your calculator will remember that as x. So I can actually type this in with x, and it'll tell me what my y value is. So -2x squared plus 8x plus 1. You can type it in the old-fashioned way as well. You get 9. So you could do this, -2 squared plus 8 times 2. Just use parentheses and you're fine. But if you want to use the store trick, that's also helpful for people. You get 9 either way. It's 9. 2 is at 9, so that's right here. And then my last thing is y-intercept is 0, 1. So 0, 1 is right here. And then I'll reflect it 2 to the left. So let's go 2 to the right. Now I got my parabola. It's going to look something like this. You want a smooth curve. Pretty good. Okay. So that's all you need to analyze and sketch the graph of a quadratic. And we're going to take a quiz this week. So good luck.